In this very important next segment on affirmation writing, and we'll also be talking about setting internal goals, we'll be talking about setting external goals. So it'll be the next step that we talk to about moving towards and becoming like that which we think about. So one of the things we want to do in this next step is to take a look at how to design a big picture for ourselves. So I'd like to draw a picture up here on how to do that. When we start taking a look at creating a big picture, one of the things is to look at as an individual or as a nation or as a tribe or as a group, well, what are the areas of my life that would be a big picture of myself? So it might very well be, if I were to just draw a diagram, as I would sit and I would think, well, what is the big picture for my life? Well, one thing would probably be an idea that I'd want to take a look at is maybe my family. So I would say, yeah, my family, that's an important part of the big picture for myself. Another area, it might be, well, maybe my work. That chews up a certain part of the time in my life. So it might be important that I consider that to be a big part of my family and of the picture of myself. Another might be finances. I say, well, I need to make a living. I need to consider these things in my life. So as I start to work around and consider in this big picture wheel, I might also want to consider, well, there's a personal part that I want to look at, just my own personal time, my own personal. Maybe it's okay for me to schedule me to do certain things that I personally dislike. Another part might be my spiritual part. Another, it might be education. But as we start to design this big picture in setting goals, that if I move towards and become like that which I think about, well, I want to design that when I do this work and I make these changes and growth in myself, well, I want to head towards what's in my life. Now, everybody's could be different. We could each have some of these. We could each have perhaps different ones. Then there's another important part, I think, in goal setting. See, we will always work towards and try to achieve whatever our uppermost goal is. So it might be that covering all of these things, there might be something else I need to consider. At one time in my life, what I was trying to do is to be successful. And I had a picture of what was success, but then I found out that's really not what I was looking for. So as I started to grow and to change, I started to wonder, well, where am I going? I ask myself that question sometimes. Who am I? Why am I? Why was I born? Why am I here? And as I sorted through this big picture process in my life, personally, I found that this uppermost goal, my purpose for myself, is to be of maximum use to the Creator and to serve others. So in other words, as I take a look at that working out for me personally, that is why I'm here. That is why I was born. That is what I need to do. So as I keep that in my mind, and I know that I always will work towards my uppermost goal, then in each of these areas that I set goals, I need to align them to my purpose. That each one of these ought to consider what my uppermost goal is. Now, that not only works for the individual, but if we take a look at goal setting and creating this vision of greatness for us as Native people, and for us to turn around and take a look at making our future very positive and very powerful and very kind, then even our nations need to take a look at what is our uppermost goal. So you can do this system of goal setting, of taking a look at, supposing I'm a leader of people. Well, then I would need to take a look at, how about these qualities? What kind of qualities would I want to include? What would be the uppermost goal for our people? Why am I here? Why are we doing all of these things? So we're able to use a system of taking a generic look at the big picture and to take a look at our purpose and what our mission might be. Now, in a previous video, we took a look at maybe doing a self-assessment. Well, sometimes we say, if I look at a self-assessment, then what would that look like? So in each of these areas, then I'm able to spin off something else that I can take a look at. What kind of person might I want to be in the future? You know, so often as the individual level, we get hung up on who we are today. We say, well, I might consider myself to be no good, and I might have all these negative attitudes about myself. And so we have a tendency sometimes to judge that which we just see today. But I think we need to take a look at maybe at growing and making these changes, perhaps with a point of view that I think our Creator has for us. I think we tend to look at how things are today. I think what He tends to look at is how we're going to be. His excitement is in our growing and in the lessons that we're going to get from getting there in the future. So one way to take a look at, well, what would I want to put in here for myself? One good way, and I'm not going to be talking about comparing, I'm going to be talking about observing, to look around. So as we start to design this quality of what type of person I might want to be, a lot of times a real good way is to just observe other people. Because a lot of times you'll see in another person, like maybe a father with his children, and you say, I really like his style. I like how he listens to them. I like how he pays individual attention to them. And you might look over at this one and see another quality. I really like how this person communicates. I really like how easy it is for this person to trust. I really like that positive attitude that person has. They come in and they're always up. They're always positive. I really like when things are bad, how this person has the ability to start turning and helping others. So I found that if I watch and I just pick different qualities from each person, and I say, okay, that's what I want to be like. I want one of those. Not that I want to be like that person, but I want that quality that person has. So that I get some ideas how to build a better me. Now, the next step we need to take a look at in goal setting, one of the things we talked about, well, if I go pick these things or if I set these type of goals, well, how is that going to happen? So we want to talk about something that we have within inside of ourselves. It's called a reticular activating system. The reticular activating system is a group of cells located at the base of our brain. And what the reticular activating system does, in a sense, it controls our awareness, what we are aware of. I guess a good way to look at it is it's a filter system. So in other words, it has the ability to screen out information that's going on as we scan our environmental scan. It's concentration, maybe the ability to focus. Like when we read a book, and when we get into the book, then all of a sudden we block out all the other kind of noise. It might be kids crying, it might be doors slamming, it might be. But when we focus on that book, the reticular activating system has the ability to not let that kind of information come through. And it's very true in goal setting. So basically there's two things that get through the reticular activating system. One thing that it allows to get through is pay value, what is ever of value to me presently, in the now. The second thing it allows to get through is fear. A good example of the pay value, I don't know if anybody's ever wondered about this, but I used to wonder sometimes, like when we had a small baby in the house. We lived near a place where there was a lot of traffic, there was a lot of noise, airplanes landing. You could even have trains going by. And you can lay there at nighttime, and what happens, I noticed my wife what she could do is be sleeping, and all this noise would be going on, but we could have a baby in another room with a door partially shut, and that baby could just cough, and she would wake right up. And I used to wonder, how did she do that? How does she so purposely know that she could go to sleep, and yet she could hear that baby's cry? Because I never could. Well, what that is about is about the pay value that that baby had to her. So in other words, the reticular activating system, even though we're asleep, it's still functioning. It's still looking for that which is important to that person. So when that baby would make a noise, she would wake up. That's a reticular activating system working. I think we've even noticed sometimes how it works like when we're at the airport. You can be in an airport and you don't hear anything, but as you walk down the hall, if you hear a noise, a name similar to yours, click, all of a sudden you stop thinking and you pay attention to that announcement of the loudspeaker. So what the reticular activating system allows us to do is it controls our awareness. Now, what does this have to do with internal and external goal setting? One of the things that it does is when we determine something is of value, when we determine an end result, a goal, well, what happens is once you pick the goal, even though you don't have it and you don't know how it's coming, it's the reticular activating system. It's a process in our brain that will start to allow us to see. So what it's about setting goals. First you set the goal, then you see. You do not see first. Even it wasn't that many months ago when we made a decision to make this video, for example. Now, we didn't know how we were going to do it. We had no idea. We only picked the goal, and we started to talk about it, and we started to bring that idea into our mind. And as we progressed over the months, all of a sudden, information started to scream through to our awareness, just like that baby's cry. So you'd start to hear somebody who say, well, I know somebody that does this, and your ear will hear what that person says. So when we talk about goal setting, we have a mechanism inside of ourselves that as we start to pick these qualities, even in ourselves, and as we start to set goals, even though we don't know how they're going to happen, we need to understand that we have another thing inside of our minds that will help us to see. Sometimes we hear that called another thing, and it's called faith. Belief without evidence. That we have the ability to pick the goal, to pick something that we believe in, hold that picture in our minds, and then it will show up. So what we want to go to next is look at these affirmations. We talked about affirmations as self-talk. So we want to take a look at how to write the affirmations. Then we'll take a look at how to get them inside of our minds. And then we'll take a look at, well, how long do I affirm? So I'd like to write here some steps in how to write affirmations. First, affirmations should be personal. If you remember, when we drew the picture of the brain cell, and what we said was, when we wanted to make a change, to print something new, we would be going to a new place. So say I have a pattern here, if you remember, but what I really want to do is I want to make a change. So to make it personal, typically an affirmation will start out, I am. And then we go out to talk about me personally, what I am. So if I were a negative thinker and I wanted to change, well, I might say I am a positive thinker. The next thing in writing affirmations is it should be positive. It should be written in the positive, not the negative. Because what we want to do is control the printing that we're going to do in a new part of our brain. In other words, it might be, I want to write a personal affirmation that's something to do with my family. So I might say something like, I make good decisions and enjoy having the respect of my family. So I would start to affirm or to print through my self-talk a statement in my brain to change my relationship with my family. In other words, I can't say, if my family makes the changes, then I can do this. That doesn't work. So what I need to do is I need to change me. Remember, all permanent and lasting change starts on the inside. So we should make it personal, and we should make it positive. The other thing about writing affirmations is it should be in a present tense. In other words, it should be written in the now. Now this is very key. So what I would do is I would look ahead like the change has already taken place. I would write the affirmation like I already accomplished it, even though I'm not that yet. Once again, the reason we do that is if we were to affirm it's already done. I am kind, even though I may not be yet. I am positive, even though I'm working off of this one. As I affirm in the now, the end result like it's already done, that is what makes the self-image change. It makes, remember from the temperature, it makes me hotter because I now have put into my mind in present tense, like the change already has taken place. In a sense of making this change, sometimes we've got to act as if. There's a saying that says, act as if you really are it. It's just no different in making changes. It's no different than like when a little baby learns to walk. You don't see a little baby, when it first learns to walk, you don't see it get up and then it falls down and it gets up and it falls down and it gets up and it falls down. It doesn't say, that does it. I'm not walking no more. I can't make this change. This walk, I give up. I'm not doing it. We need to be like a child when we make changes. What that baby does is it tries again and it's learning and it learns balance, it falls forward and it learns all of these things. So in making these changes, we need to learn. All we got to do is learn to be sloppy for a while. We got to know as we make these changes that this is going on. So we construct the affirmation when we write it in present tense. Another thing that's really good is to make it a positive emotion. If we remember, our thoughts record in words that trigger pictures that have a feeling or an emotion. So when we print, we write the affirmation in words and we use positive emotions. If we use that when we write it in there, we start to say, it's easy for me to do this. I look forward to doing it. It's exciting for me to do. It's wonderful to do. So as I do the affirmation, then I print that positive emotion in there. Another thing in writing affirmation, it's good if we keep it realistic. Realistic means the closer it is in time that I want to make the change, the more realistic it must be. But the further out it is, the more unrealistic it can be. And the last thing is, in making affirmations, is the clearer the picture, the clearer the end result, to be specific. If it's an issue of losing weight, pick the pound. It's an issue of increasing our abundance, pick the dollar amount. Being specific, a good example of that might be, say we go to a restaurant and a waitress would come up and we'd say, she'd come up and say, can I help you? You'd say, yeah, bring me some food. Well, she can't go get that. She's going to say, could you be a little bit more specific? You say, bring me a malt, French fries, cheeseburger. Now she can go get it. So it's important to be specific. So when we write these affirmations, whether we write them towards our family, how I would treat my family, or we can write them in leadership, or whether we'd write them how we get along at work, or how we would write them about making changes in myself. Sometimes we judge ourselves very bad. So I might write an affirmation on how I would consider myself to be an effective learner. I enjoy growing. I accept myself as I am. I am a beautiful child of the Creator. So I start to change and put those opinions in myself in a new place in my brain. Then I start to make this change that I want to make, so that I move towards become like that type of person, which I am able to do when I change that image of myself. So as we write these affirmations, so we'd write out a statement, maybe for an example is, I am a beautiful child of the Creator. And I'll just use this for an example. So I might write that down, and I might write that affirmation to help me change that feeling of self-worth inside of myself. I might say I love and I accept myself, to elevate that feeling of worth. So one of the things we need to take a look at after we write the affirmation, then how would we get that affirmation inside of our brain? So we'll talk about using an example of how do we get that inside of us. There's a formula that says I times V equals R at the subconscious level. Imagination times vividness, or a clear picture, using my visualization, my imagination, and make it clear, that is what will start to print that picture inside of my subconscious. So what I would do is I would take maybe a 3x5 card and I would write that statement on that card. So what I would do is I would read the words, then I would picture what those words picture, and then I would choose the emotion or feeling. So I would take that card. Now usually the best time to do it is very early in the morning and very late at night, a couple times a day. So I would take that card and I would get quiet and I would read those words. I'm a beautiful child of the Creator. And I would close my eyes and I would create a picture of seeing the positiveness, and I'd see me growing and maybe see grandfather over there just smiling, watching me grow. And I would get the happiness feeling inside. I may not be there, but I am growing and I like it. So I might write those kind of affirmations in here. I might write an affirmation about my sobriety as I'm growing. I might write a statement about that and tell myself and picture myself and print within myself about how beautiful it is to be sober and how beautiful it is to growing, how my life is changing and the effects it has on my family. So if we do these affirmations, then the next question is, well, how long would we do this? So I would write those affirmations down on a card, and I would say to do each card, it takes like maybe 10-15 seconds. So I'm able to do quite a few of them depending upon the time that I have that I choose to spend in the morning. So if I choose to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes and they run 15 seconds, so I would take the card and I would read that card and I'd close my eyes and allow that to print in a new part of my brain. Then I would take another card with other affirmations on it and I would read that card, close my eyes and get a picture in my mind and feel the feeling. I would say to print this new pattern in a brain, it might take maybe from 20, 25 days or so, doing it regularly, to where all of a sudden this will start to become a dominant picture in our minds. So we read the cards. This is how we imprint it in the brain. So we write out these statements, and then we do them each morning and each night. Now you can even put them on tape. You can do it more than twice a day. That also works. But one of the things we find in doing this type of work, this visualization work is a real natural for Indian people. Even in our culture, it's pictures, our stories that we tell. We're very picture-oriented people. When we start to take a look at some of the things that our culture teaches us, it teaches us how to live in harmony with the earth. All those feelings, when we watch nature, when we go out and we watch and feel that feeling of oneness with everything, that's what we're talking about as far as creating these affirmations. Now there will be some affirmations in the workbook. There are a lot more detailed information on how to do these things. I find this, that in doing the affirmations, it's not the words that makes the print. It's that spirit and intent behind my word when I read these. In other words, I wouldn't just sit down and pick up a card and read it. Say, I'm a beautiful child of the Creator. What I need to do is spend a little bit time aligning my spirit. It's the spirit and the intent. Where does that spirit and intent come from? That's what it is that the medicine wheel gives us. It's at that center. It's that thing inside of us where we intentionally desire to make this change. So what we will do in the next segment, we're going to talk about motivation. And in that segment, I don't know if you've ever wondered sometimes, have you ever gone somewhere and you heard a motivational speaker and you come out of there and you just feel good? Or you've gone somewhere like maybe to a church or somewhere and you come out and you say, well, that minister really motivates me, or this speaker really motivates me. They seem to do something inside of ourselves that makes us feel different than what we did before they went in there. So we're going to talk about in the next segment, the next step is to talk about motivation. What we're going to share is when they do that, what is it happens inside of our brain? So that once you know that that's what they've done, then what will happen, you'll be able to do it yourself. So stay tuned. We'll see you in the beginning of motivation.